So today we're going to be talking about a strange and unusual phenomenon known as the hum. And what is the hum, you're going to say? Well, the hum is a generic term for a strange phenomenon that is a persistent and low frequency humming noise that is not audible to all people. And the reason we're going to discuss it today is really, I had a couple of colleagues come up to me and they say they've indeed experienced the hum here in Nottingham, which of course I had as well, which was the basis of why I wrote the article, which I'm going to kind of read for you today. And also, this also had a revisit a little while ago when I republished this for Supernatural magazine. So it's only fair, perhaps, is that we discuss it, we read through it, and also gives us a chance to discuss the rationale behind it. So the hum is reported all over the world. One description of it is it sounds like a distant diesel engine, kind of rumbling in the distance. And typical, the hum is very difficult to detect with microphones, and it's actually really hard to localise. Now, across the world there is many hums, as we've said, and they've indeed been a focus of research and speculation. Whether that is Taos, whether that's Scotland, Windsor, Ontario, Bristol, they're among the most famous hum zones, shall we say. And many are dismissive of it, others are very adamant about it. But what we've had in the UK, we've had indeed one suicide as a direct result of experiencing the hum. Now, it is said only 2% of people aged between the ages of 55 and 70 are able to hear it. According to a 2003 study published by an acoustical engineer called Jeff Levenhall, who's located in Surrey, England. And many media outlets have run numerous stories and requests for information on the hum. Indeed, in 2011 there was a crazy media search on the hum across all of England. In fact, there was quite a national buzz. There was stories in The Guardian, there were stories in the Daily Mail, and oddly enough, there was a story I found on the Tesco website. Tesco's a shop, so I found it really strange. But yeah, it wasn't intro, I did see that. They all were running articles on the hum. So, Unsolved Mysteries, also a successor series to the series Sightings. They explored the hum as well on episode 218. If you want to keep track and go have a look at that, you can find it on YouTube. There was a taped recreation of the Taos hum that was used for the segment by a guy called Robert Stack. Now, I can only really talk about my own experience about the Nottingham Hum, so I wanted to perhaps reiterate that to you if you haven't read the article already. So our experience was, we were actually filming for a documentary called A Look Behind the Mirror, and that was in 2008 in the July. Now, when we were recording for that, we were at a location called Bestwood Country Park, which is located in the very northeast of Nottingham, and we were progressing down an area called Park Road. There's myself, my colleague Sylvia, another friend of ours called Alan Smith, and there really was this distinctly low frequency but also high pitch sound. It was a horrible din, and it was barely audible. It was on the very edge of the hearing, but it was intermittent. It was steady, that it was on, that it was off. It gave us a hell of a headache at the time that we were there that afternoon. And the area where we particularly recorded this information, what we recorded for the documentary, it's a place that is frequently known for other phenomena as well. So I kind of always wondered, is this a linked case? Is this linked to other things? So in the area we have reports of lights in the sky. We also have a first-hand report of a Men in Black encounter there, located on Park Road. So, and another strange experience we had when we were recording this, our batteries drained like there's no tomorrow. I particularly took, I took 4 sets of batteries, and all of them lasted no more than a couple of minutes. In fact, 2 sets of batteries didn't work, despite the fact they were fully charged when we left the house. So, are they related? I don't know, but there were strange experiences we had when we were out there. In the November 2006, a Dr. Tom Muir of the University of Massey in Auckland, New Zealand, made a recording of the Auckland hum, and he's published it on their university website. Now, he captured this, and he found there was density peaks at around 56 Hz. In 2009, the head of audiology at Addenbrooke's Hospital in Cambridge, Dr. David Bagley, managed to successfully record what he believed was the hum with the help of acousticians at the Salford University. So coming back to Nottingham, which became the focus of our research, we found in the local studies library in Nottingham City's main library, there's a number of letters, a number of clippings, even discussions about the Nottingham Hum, and many were 30 years old. So these were going back to like the mid-1980s. There was one of 1979, mainly sourced in the city's main newspaper, which at the time was called the Nottingham Evening Post. It's since had an update, just become the Nottingham Post now. So I thought I'd just give you a bit of a rebrief on what some of those words were. So one of the first reports we had was for the 11th of May 1985, Nottingham Evening Post here, where the individual called John Natley of Henrietta Street, Borwell, reports that the last 3 years he says what he believed to be like German bombers in the distance. The news report also quotes that Hucknall residents have complained of a constant buzz in the area that only became logged in 1977. Dozens of complaints have been brought in response from the Universities of London, Nottingham, and even Ashfield District Council's Environmental and Health Department. In June 1986, Patsy Martin reported that the hum was heard across areas of Bulwell, which is where I live, and as well as West Bridgefield, which is the south of the city, Beeston, which is the far west of the city, as well as Sherwood, which is located quite near the city centre, and Arnold, which is the northeast of the city. The popular theories are that perhaps there's a mysterious underground facility around, maybe an alien invasion team down there, or some kind of secret governmental base. The study was done by the university at the time, and suggested the hum was actually an acoustic wavelength coincided with the room's dimensions, and the sound waves were literally bouncing around the room. It's very constant in many of the reports is that the hum sounds much louder when it's inside the house. So many have put this down to the fact that it's perhaps the electrics within people's houses. Now, Dr. Ross Cole of the Medical Research Council confirmed that this phenomenon ruled out tinnitus as the reason because of the hum. He published an article Chris Lamb published an article in the 24th of May 1985 in the Nottingham Evening Post. Now, he reports what he believed was the case. Now, I've actually gone on to discuss this point, and it doesn't come up very often, but I think it's a very important one. Mr. Bennett, he talks about, he was the chief engineer at the Odeon Cinema, formerly in Hucknall, it's now become a bingo hall, who had 18 years experience in sound engineering. So this puts him as an expert into the field of sound and acoustics. He put forward the theory of standing engines. At the time, Nottingham and Hucknall particularly was crisscrossed with a massive network of railway lines stemming from the coal industry that boomed well into the 80s and early 90s. The sound cannot be heard standing next to an engine because, of course, it's drowned out by the vibration causing it. But in theory, it works a lot like a tuning fork. So as a standing engine, or with a head of steam, sends vibrations down the whole track. Is it therefore like a rail resonation? Is the metal vibrating to a certain point where that of 100 engines? It seems quite a logical reason, in fact. However, that was the 80s. We're now in, the 2010s? So there aren't quite as many lines around now as there were back then, certainly in Nottingham's case. We only, in terms of our city, we have just the Nottingham Robin Hood line, and we also have the Nottingham Express tram lines, which, again, if the theory holds up, the hum is heard throughout the night. However, the tram lines are actually turned off about 1 o'clock, so just as the depot is closing down, all the trams are turned off. So it holds up in a logical sense, but it also, when they're turned off, it's still occurring, so we have to put it on the back burner and say perhaps not. The man-made noises, perhaps. Is this perhaps a cause? High-frequency iteration of distant industrial sounds or stereo subwoofers from homes, cars, music venues. The Los Alamos National Laboratory, as sound moves through the atmosphere or the ground, the high frequencies decrease in amplitude, perhaps more rapidly than low-frequency ones, which subsequently travel greater distances. The low-frequency sounds can be focused by walls and structural geometry, and sound like ambiguous rumblings or hums. Internal machinery such as compressors, pumps, fans can also produce similar kinds of sounds. Although this is one of the explanations that first comes to mind, ordinary microphones have failed to detect the hum, and investigations have failed to convincingly trace the hum to such sources. We have the technology that is called pulsed microwaves, a phenomenon similar to a microwave auditory effect. These pulsed microwave sources, possibly in combination with other factors. The thermoelastic mechanism may or may not be involved here, but possible types of electromagnetic sources could involve different physical and physiological mechanisms, or a combination thereof. Some of the components for an electromagnetic environment and examples of combined effects have been discussed, and there was an investigation in Comico in Indiana where experts put that theory to the test. Now, what about electromagnetic waves caused by meteors? This is one other theory put forth, that a variant of the audio frequency electromagnetic emissions generated upon the entry of a meteor was disintegration in the upper atmosphere. The disintegration of large meteors in the upper atmosphere has been known to release megawatts of power in the audio frequency range, primarily through the interaction of the ionization trail with the Earth's magnetic field. For instance, the listening to Leonard's is a description of a meteor sound effect, and it is also speculated that solar wind may also create some kind of audio effect through the magnetic spectrum. We also have extremely low frequency communication systems, such as those being used by submarine communication systems that use low frequency radio transmissions, ELF, and the proponents of a theory suggest that transmissions may somehow also produce effects that directly or indirectly through mechanisms similar or different, maybe those that are being detected. We also have ionospheric heating systems. Large-scale effects are those known by ionospheric heating systems. I guess the most famous one of those would be HARP in Alaska. UK uses a similar practice called SCAT, and we also have Merck as well. We know the Russians have something similar. We know that China has something similar. Where we intentionally heat the upper atmosphere using electromagnetic waves and heat, and we cause an effect to go up, and it reflects back down on the Earth. The technology developed by Nikola Tesla. Also you have tinnitus. Tinnitus, of course, has been discounted by many, but also it cannot be discarded. It's generated by the body, or the auditory and the nervous system. There's no external stimuli. However, the theory that the hum is just tinnitus fails to explain why the hum can only be heard in certain geographic locations. Some people who claim to hear the hum say that it is worse indoors. This would lean towards tinnitus. Tinnitus is generally worse in places with less exterior sound. There may exist individual differences as to the threshold of perception of acoustic or non-acoustic stimuli, and other individual variations that could not contribute to the fact that some people in the population experience the hum and some do not. The hum is certainly a perplexing phenomenon, one perhaps that can be solved, and perhaps on the other hand not. So we can only leave this strange phenomena as case unsolved. That is, unless you can shed some light and throw a wild card out of the box here that perhaps could finally solve the strange mystery known as the hum. My name is Kristian. I hope I have not bored you too much, and I hope I have been of interest to you, and perhaps you may have something to add to this very indeed conversation. So please let me know, have a chat in the comments below, share this story if you know those who perhaps are experiencing the hum and wish to have a general chat about it. My name is Kristian once again, and this is me signing off. Thank you very much for listening.